Hey, Scott Sambuccio here over at Sales Qualia, Chief Sales Geek. And here at Sales Qualia, one of the things that we focus on is helping early stage B2B startups ramp up and scale up their sales process. And what that means for a lot of companies, especially when you get to a Series A round for a founder, that's the time where you've got to get serious about building out a sales team. And what I want to do here in this video and in this recording is talk a little bit about the ways in which both on the founder side, how can you assess and evaluate, are you ready to hire top talent? And I'm going to keep stressing this idea of top talent. Are you ready to hire that top talent that you're going to need in order to get past that A round and to the B and the C and really onto that path to make an impact and start to scale up? And also for that top talent, if you're out there interviewing, as you're out there talking to potential employers, if you're looking to join a Series A, then I want to talk to you about what you could be doing, you should be doing, you need to be doing in order to assess and evaluate the opportunity that is presented to you by these Series A companies. So first, before we do that, I want to just talk a little bit about why Series A is so critical and so pivotal. I mean, besides the obvious, which is, at that Series A round, the founder has usually been the main salesperson, right? You may have brought on, somebody that's doing a little bit of lead gen or working with a marketing person who's helping you with inbound or lead flow. Maybe you've got somebody who's running some outbound campaigns for you. That person might also be a utility kind of person that might be doing some lead gen on the front end, but also customer success on the back end. You might have found a first version of an account executive, maybe somebody that we like to call a market maker, somebody who's helped you crack the doors open at some of the big accounts that you want to focus on in your industry. And so maybe somebody that's had some experience in that industry and is able to get you the meetings that you need to get to, but still, getting to that, roughly $1 million to $3 million in revenue that kind of qualifies you for that Series A is probably still mostly been founder-led selling. You've got some sales team around you, but it's not that formal structure where you've got SDRs and account executives and customer success managers. Now that you've proven that you're on the path to product market fit, those investors are rewarding you and saying, look, we believe in the model, we believe in the process that you've built, and we think now you're ready to start scaling. So here's money to help you scale the company, help you scale the organization. So a lot of times that money that you're getting in that Series A is going to be invested in building out your sales team to help you further grow that much faster, start 10xing that growth that you've achieved. So that's why, at a Series A, it's such a critical juncture, because now you've got to take yourself out of the selling and you've got to find people that are going to run that process for you. Now let's talk about the top talent. So why is Series A so critical? Well, for obvious reasons, right? If you get in at the ground floor with a Series A level company, then that's going to afford you the upside opportunity of future wealth. I mean, let's just face it. I mean, that's one of the reasons why many of us are in the startup industry, is because the upside potential is enormous. Not to mention, being able to impact industries in ways that we might not be able to at other large companies. Most of us are giving up certain levels of financial security, healthcare programs, working late hours, doing all kinds of craziness in order to see if we can, make something out of nothing, right? And that's what is so attractive about working at early stage companies, is getting in on that ground floor. And so if you're a top talent out there, then there is very significant risk to you. There is clear financial risk, because you might be giving up other sales opportunities where you could easily make a $200,000 base salary if you're a top account executive, and then be able to double that with bonuses and commissions. That you're giving up other security around job security. Working at a Fortune 500 might be easier and more secure than obviously working at a startup that 18 months later after you start might end up blowing up for no reason or no cause of your own. And so you're taking that risk, but you know that the upside is there. And so if you're a top talent and you want to enjoy the opportunity of working at a Series A company, that means that you've got to do your assessment and your evaluation of that Series A to make sure that the opportunity is real and a relative scale. There's no guarantees out there. However, it's critical that as a candidate that you are taking the same assessment and evaluation of that company and the opportunity to make sure that you know as much as you can what you're getting into. And so what I wanted to do is share, 5 factors that both for the founder and for the talent out there, what are these 5 factors that both sides of this market, because hiring is a two-sided market, what can both sides of this market use these 5 factors in order to assess and evaluate what the real opportunity is. So for the founder, it's being able to assess and evaluate, are you ready? And what's the attractiveness of your opportunity for that top talent? And for the top talent, what's the readiness and attractiveness of that company for you to know that on a relative risk adjusted basis, does it make sense for you to join a Series A company, or does it make sense to pass on what might look like a spectacular opportunity on the surface, but once you get into it, you realize really there's not as much here as you thought. So let me just go through these 5, and we'll just run through them in what I would assign as relative order of importance. Individually, you might assign different levels of importance on different pieces of this, but these are the 5 that I, at least personally, having joined 3 different startups earlier in my career, as the first salesperson, as the first sales leader, the first head of sales. These are the factors that I used, and these are the factors that I recommend to our clients that are founders and to people on LinkedIn that are looking for talent opportunities. Oftentimes people have been looking out in the job market looking for new opportunities, and so some people direct messaged me and said, hey, how do I know which Series A companies are real and which ones aren't? So these are the 5 factors that I would look at. There's probably others that are important to you individually, but I think these are the 5 that you could use as a starting point. And again, relative order of importance is how I would be thinking about this. And to make this an assessment, one of the things that I would do is think about each of these 5 that I'm going to lay out for you. Think of them put them on a scoring system on a scale of 1 to 4. So 1 being low, in terms of scoring, 4 being highest in terms of score. No halves. You're not allowed to say 2.5 or 3.5 or 1.5. It's either 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. And this will help you get really clear. That means there's no middle ground with a scale 1 to 4. If it's a scale 1 to 10, and if it's a scale 1 to 10, most people say, oh, we're a 6 in this or a 7 in that, and you give yourself all 6s and 7s. So I like the scale 1 to 4. I actually learned this from Trish Bertuzzi, who many of you listening to this might know for her excellent work over at the Bridge Group. I learned this in a podcast interview that she shared years ago, that she likes this scale of 1 to 4, and I've adopted that. And I think you can use it too in evaluating these 5 parameters. So the first parameter that I would look at is people. And again, we'll talk about this both from a founder standpoint and from a talent standpoint. So by people, what I mean is that when you are hiring somebody at a Series A, right, we're specifically talking about Series A companies, like early stage, but now moving into growth stage companies. The first thing we're going to look at is, as a founder, who are the people I have today? Right? Because that team is usually, this generalization, but it could be 20, 30, maybe 40 people, but 40 would be a lot for a seed stage company, right? You're probably somewhere around 20 or 30 people at most if you're seed stage, right? And so the people in your organization are going to be the people that your top talent are going to be joining as part of your tribe. And so I would first evaluate on a scale 1 to 4, what's the quality of my team today? Because as I'm attracting top talent and I'm bringing those people in to interview and bringing those people in to talk to the people that they will be working with, they're going to be joining this tribe. They're not just joining a company, they're joining a tribe, right? And do I have the right people in place that allow me to recruit the top talent? So now's your chance to make some trim some back if you got people that are underperforming, or you don't think that maybe they were the right people to get you out of the garage and they were the right people to move you to a Series A, but they may not be the same people that will get you past that Series A to the B and C rounds. And so I would take a really hard look at, do I have the right people in order to recruit top talent? Will the top talent want to work with the people already on my team? So think about this in terms of your tribe. And from a talent standpoint, as you're interviewing, you want to get access to as many different people as possible. and do that evaluation on your own. Just because you're interviewing for a sales position doesn't mean you should only speak to the founder and co-founder. Maybe the founder is leading sales and the co-founder is the CTO. You want to talk to, I would make it a point to talk to a couple of engineers. I would make it a point to talk to a product person that might be there. Don't just talk to the people that are working on go-to-market. It might be a small group now, 2 or 3 people that are focused on sales. Make sure that as you are evaluating this opportunity, get an audience with the head of engineering, get an audience with a couple of the engineers. These are the people you are going to be working with each and every day. And these are the people that are going to be building the product and executing on the roadmap of the product that you're going to be selling. Like, do you have confidence that the people are as dedicated to the cause as you need to be when you're out there selling, as you're transferring your enthusiasm about the product and the problem that you solve to your future customers? Do you have that same enthusiasm? Is the same motivation there for the people that are building the product each and every day, the people that are staying up late at night, doing the code pushes and fixing the bugs when those get logged, and being willing to think through product features that you're reporting back as you're out there talking to future customers? On the customer success side, like, talk to some current customers if you can get access to current customers. Ask to interview, get a reference from a current customer as part of your assessment process to see what that company's customers are saying about you. And as a founder, if we flip back to the founder side of this, that gets scary, right? You're like, wow, I'm going to give you access to the full company. Yeah, you are, because this person is going to be employee 24, right? They're joining this tribe. It's still a close-knit group. You probably still everybody's partners or spouses' names. You might know how many kids each person has. Even though you're working remote, there's still a really tight, close-knit organization. So the first thing you want to do is evaluate the people at the company, both as a founder and as a talent. So that's number one. The second thing I would look at is the problem. What is the problem that the company is out to solve, right? Is the problem attractive, right? Again, from a founder standpoint, it might be attractive and interesting to you individually because maybe you had to deal with the problem yourself, and that's why you started the company, or maybe you had exposure to the problem because of your industry expertise, and so it was interesting and exciting for you to go and try to solve this problem. And the question would be, are you positioning that problem in a way to your sales talent and helping them understand why this problem is so important to solve? Is it a problem that's going to make a big impact in the marketplace for your customers? Is it a problem that is impactful for the world, right? So making sure you're getting clear, like assessing like how attractive and interesting is the problem that you're solving. Because again, on the talent side, when you bring in those salespeople need to be mission driven. They need to be on board with the mission and vision of the company. And so I remember for me, as when I first joined Blend, which is in the lending space, some of you may have seen some of the headlines over the last couple of years. Like, they joined unicorn status and now is a $3 billion, $4 billion company in the lending industry. These were the only 2 reasons why I joined Blend. I didn't even look at the next 3 that I'm going to be sharing with you, because the founding team, I believed in the founding team. I knew them personally they were previous customers of mine when I was at Altos Research. They were customers of mine at Palantir, where they learned about the problem that they set out to solve with Blend, which is, how do you improve the mortgage lending process? How do you make a delightful lending experience, the mortgage lending experience for consumers? They saw how broken the whole mortgage system was because they were out there fixing the problem of the housing crash back in 2008 at Palantir. And so that was a problem for me individually. I had exposure to that through my work at Altos. I'd been in the market. I knew how big of a problem it was. And so the combination of the founding team and the early engineers that were there, I knew that they had the top engineers that were working on this problem. And I knew that this is a problem that I personally felt like I was interested in solving, right? And so for the talent, if you're a top talent, then your assessment of this problem is like, it shouldn't just be like, oh, it sounds like a great founding team. I think that's a good start. But remember, you're the one that's going to be on the front lines every day. You're the one that's going to be interacting with your customers. You're the one that's going to be transferring that enthusiasm for why and how your product solves the problem the way it does. And so if you're not impassioned, if you're not excited, if you're not mission driven on helping to solve this problem, when things get hard, when there are bugs in the product and the implementations get behind, and you're getting pushback and objections from people about features that don't exist or need to exist, or why the buttons are blue instead of red, you got to be able to sit there and take that and say, it's okay, we're going to fix this. We're all in this together internally because I believe in the problem. Right? And there were many times when I was at Blend dealing with product bugs and workflow issues and trying to get our customers, our future customers, to understand why we were doing what we did. And it was hard. And there was times I'm sitting in cubicles logging bugs in the middle of a pilot launch. I've talked about this in the past. There were times where I'm doing QA testing in a hotel room in the Town Place Suites in Dallas, Texas, not even in Dallas, Texas, an outskirt of Dallas, Texas, eating rubber eggs in the morning and drinking watery coffee because that was the only thing available to me. Staying up till 2 doing the QA testing so that at 7 o'clock in the morning we could roll out the workflows. Right? I mean, that's somebody, I was dedicated to solving the problem. I wanted to make this work. So as a talent, you need to look at, is this a problem that you're interested in? Is it an attractive problem? Is it an impactful problem? Right? Is it just another app out there in the marketing and sales ecosystem? It's, app number 5001 that's getting added to the marketing sales app ecosystem? Or is it really fundamentally an app or a platform that's solving a critical problem that's going to make a big impact? I think that's important. It's critical. That's why it's one of these 5. The third thing I would then look at is the product itself. So, again, evaluating this on a scale 1 to 4. Where is the product? How saleable is it? How sellable is it, right? So it's one thing when the founder might have been able to, sprinkle founder magic, or make lots of promises. Maybe the company that you're interviewing with has lots of great customers, but how many of those customers are using the product and the platform in the way it's designed, in a configurable way, as opposed to how many of the implementations are kind of like special favors, and we added this feature and that integration, and every customer has its own little nuance, and their pricing is kind of all over the map. And so the founder was able to cobble together, enough revenue and customers to make it look good on paper to get the Series A. But how saleable is the product, and how scalable is the the product implementation going to be? So I would look really clearly on the product state. And what's the product roadmap today? What's the product today that you can sell? Are you confident that you can sell the product today as it exists to solve the problem that your customers have? And is the roadmap going to only strengthen that, right? If you're evaluating a company and saying, well, the product is really not ready to sell, or it's okay now, but in 6 months is when you're really going to start to sell it. If you're feeling like, well, it's still going to be 6 months before I can really sell this thing, then you've got to ask yourself, one, are you willing to sell the product as it stands today? Or number 2, is the product really just not ready for you to make it a big impact? And that might be okay if you're willing to be patient and put in some time, but that might also mean that you could be 3 or 6 months without the ability to generate any kind of bonuses or commissions, because you're not in a place where you'd be able to convert deals that are in the pipeline. The founder might say, hey, we've got this big sales pipeline, which we'll talk about in a minute. We just need somebody to help convert these deals, but maybe there's a reason those deals aren't converting. Like maybe there's too many objections around the product and the product state. It doesn't have what is necessary from the customer standpoint in order for them to take action. So I'd evaluate the product. And of course, on the founder side, do the same thing, right? Because if you hire top talent and the product really isn't ready to start scaling the sales and the sales operations, and you find, great account executives out there, and you bring them in, you hire 2 or 3 account executives to come in here and start to, you tell them like, hey, the opportunity is huge. You've got a big pipeline. These leads are coming in. We need people to start converting these deals. And that's the promise that you're selling on. But at the end of the day, that the product actually is still 6 months away before we can really start to penetrate upmarket. It's one thing to sell the opportunity and say, well, we've been selling to the SMB segment and we've been able to put together $1.5 million in repeatable revenue, and that's going well. So now we're going to bring in account executives and we want you to move up market and sell to Fortune 500 companies. We want to go from 20 and 30K deals to 100K deals. Okay, that's great. I mean, who doesn't want to do that? But is the product ready for those salespeople to be able to sell a 100K deal? Are they able to sell to a Fortune 500 as the product stands today, or at least is there a short-term roadmap to get there? Or are you hiring people knowing that the product isn't going to be ready for 6 months or 12 months, because now you're going to have top talent sitting around feeling like they're wasting their time, thinking month to month how they could be earning other commission checks and bonuses in other places. They were sold a promise that, hey, we're going to sell 100K deals, but those 100K deals can't really materialize for another 6 to 12 months. So is the product ready to be sold by that top talent that you're bringing in? So then the next piece I would look at is process. And specifically what I'm talking about is the sales process, right? So as a founder, do an evaluation on a scale of 1 to 4. How much process do you really have in place? So one of the ways we think about process is, at the most simple model, you've got 3 main parts of your sales process. You got leads. How do you generate leads? Filling the funnel. Deals, your active pipeline. How do you qualify, convert, qualify, demo, march those deals through their buying process to conversion. And then the third piece, of course, is your conversions and your paying customers, your pricing and your paying customers. Those are kind of your 3 main parts of your sales process. There's lots of little pieces around that, lots of systems that we always talk about and teach. When you look at that 3-part sales process, do you have at least 1 or 2 lead channels that are working pretty well? Do you have a process for generating leads every week or every month? Because if you hire an SDR and you say, hey, I'm going to hire an SDR to do outbound, but you've never tested outbound, that means you don't have a process for outbound. And what you're asking that top talent to do, you might hire the world's best SDR. But if you're hiring that SDR, but you don't have a tested, proven process for generating leads on outbound, then how do you even know it makes sense to hire an outbound SDR? Because if you haven't tested it, you don't have the metrics to know that, hey, this is working for me. Now I just need somebody to run that system, right? The same goes with your pipeline. When you look at your sales pipeline, do you have some metrics around time to conversion? Do you know what constitutes a qualified lead or not, right? Are you focusing on a target market? What's your pipeline coverage rate, right? You might say, hey, we got this nice, big, healthy pipeline. We've been pulling in lots of leads and stacking up the sales pipeline. Gosh, we just got to get somebody to help me close these deals, right? Maybe they're not closing. Maybe you're not converting those deals because there's something wrong with your sales process. And hiring the world's best account executive may not solve that problem that you've got with your pipeline. If you're only converting 10% of your deals that are considered that you think are qualified opportunities, you've got a pipeline coverage rate of, 1 out of 10, right? It's like that means 10% of your deals are closing or converting. That's a problem, right? Because now what are you going to do if you bring in a top account executive? Tell them to work 9 deals, knowing that 9 out of those are not going to convert just to get the 1? That's not what a top talent account executive wants to hear, right? Now they know they can't convert every deal, but they want to know there's a process in place, that we know how to qualify our opportunities. We know how to run through the product demo the right way. We know how to handle objections. We know that there might be some technical hurdles, but there's ways to reduce that risk and do implementation in a way that allows a phased rollout so that the target customer can get comfortable with saying yes and not just stacking up deals in the pipeline waiting for feature releases or new integrations, or if only you were on the Salesforce platform, then we would buy, right? And then finally, in the third piece of your sales process, like, how are you pricing? Are you starting to get some convergence and some consistency around how you're pricing? Are you clear about the value that's being created? Are you value-based pricing, or are your deals all over the map? And once you get those conversions, how are you implementing? Do you have a customer success system, an implementation system of some form? And again, none of these things are going to be perfect, from lead gen to pipeline to your customers and your conversions and your implementations. But there should be a working version 1.0 of a sales process, so that an account executive or an SDR or a customer success manager can say, okay, I see what we've got as a starting point. Now I can build on top of that, as opposed to creating from scratch. Just like you would hire an engineer. You want to hire an engineer and say, hey, we've got this framework. We've got a core code base on which our platform is built. Now, as an engineer, I want you to build on top of that code base, on top of that core framework. It's the same way with hiring top talent. And if you're top talent out there, you can see where I'm going with this, right? You want to interrogate, in a good way. You want to, learn about, like, how are we getting leads, right? Are all the leads inbound and referral? And there's some, oh, well, we used to get a lot of leads last year when we had conferences, but it hasn't been working for the past year because of the pandemic. So we're still trying to sort out how to get leads. Or, we want to start doing outbound because we think that'll work. Well, then ask, like, why do you think that will work? What steps are you taking to test whether or not outbound will work? And what do you feel like that lead flow is going to be for me as an account executive to know that I've got to go do that? Or are you expecting me to do the prospecting and the outbound, right? Because if you're expecting me to do the hunting and do the deal development and do the conversion, what that means is, as a salesperson, I'm going to be spending a considerable amount of my time every week or every month going out and doing the prospecting, doing the cold outreach, trying to fill my own funnel. And again, that may be okay. You just need to know that that's the case, right? You deserve to know if that's the case. You deserve to know if there are some gaps, some significant gaps in the sales process, right? And if those process gaps are too large for you to make an impact as a salesperson, then that's an opportunity for you to reassess whether or not this is the right opportunity for you. And then the fifth parameter I would look at is professional growth. Professional growth. And again, we're going to look at this both from, on a scale 1 to 4, right? 4 being really good, 1 being non-existent. As a founder, when you are looking at your opportunity in front of you, your opportunity to grow the team, you've closed a Series A, you've got this funding, you've got 5 or 6 or 10 or $15 million in funding, right? And now you want to bring in top talent. When you're assessing that talent, are these candidates that you're assessing, are they going to be role players that are always going to be role players, or is there an opportunity for this person to grow? When you're interviewing that SDR, is that a kind of person that you could see if they want to move up in the organization or move over in the organization, maybe take a customer success role or a product role or account executive role? Are you assessing whether or not that person is going to be able to grow as the company grows? Because the company's going to be moving fast, right? You've already converted, you've already closed the Series A. Maybe it's spring, it's spring 2021, right? It's April. Maybe you just closed the Series A, and you're probably already thinking about your runway to a Series B. You might be thinking by the 18 months from now, I'm going to need to convert. I need to close a Series B by the end of 2022, right? And so when we get to that place, and as we're growing sales, we go from 1 million to 3 million or 3 million to 10 million in this next growth spurt that we're going through. That means the roles and the responsibilities and the opportunities are going to change. Is this a kind of person that's going to be able to be adaptable and be able to grow at the pace that the company is going to grow? And if they're not, that's okay too. Some people don't want to grow. But are you also getting clear with that person what their job is today versus what their job might be tomorrow? And additionally, not just the people that might not want to grow, and that might be fine. You also want to assess the talent to make sure that somebody that you're hiring as an account executive isn't coming in on day one and saying, well, I want to be the head of sales. When you say, well, we don't really have that job opening right now. Like I'm going to be, as a founder, the VP of sales or head of sales. We're going to have 2 SDRs and 3 account executives and 2 customer success managers in this first version of our sales team, and everybody's going to be reporting to me. I am the head of sales, right? As opposed to that top talent feeling like, well, I want to be the head of sales, and they're coming in and interviewing as if they want to be an account executive, but once they get in on the inside, what they really want to do is be the person that is managing the sales team on a day-to-day basis. And maybe that's not what you need. On the other hand, if you're hiring a player coach or you're hiring a head of sales as part of that early stage team, being clear about what their job is today your job for the next 18 months is to be a player coach. Your job is to be a head of sales. So that means you're going to be managing some of the team and responsible for some of their performance. And you're also going to be responsible for growing revenue and converting some deals and responsible for territory yourself. That is your job. We're not hiring you as a VP of sales. We're not hiring you as a CRO. When those opportunities, when we grow and we're ready to close a Series B and a VP of sales opportunity opens up here at this company in the org chart, then if you've done your job effectively over the next 18 months, then you'll have the opportunity to interview for that position. So getting really clear on that with that top talent to make sure they know, where do they stand today versus what the future opportunities are going to be. Are those people you're hiring today going to be able to grow? Are you giving them a growth path? And are they clear about what they're hiring, what they're interviewing for today? And again, we flip this over now to the top talent side. Are you clear about what the opportunity is? Is there opportunity to grow? If you're thinking about joining the Series A company and telling yourself and telling that founder, I want to be an AE, but if in the back of your mind you're really thinking like, well, what I really want to do once I get in there is kind of like take over the head of sales role, then you need to be open and honest with the founder and talk through what does that look like? What would you need me to do in order to move into that role in 6 months' time or 12 months' time? Or what if I could help you convert $1 million in new business in the next 6 months? And we can really start to grow this and go from 1 to 3 million on an ARR basis. Then a head of sales job might be the next step for you. Is that opportunity available? So what's the now and what's the later? And being clear with knowing even if those opportunities are going to be available to you, right? Getting clear on that professional growth. So those are the 5 areas that I would, both on the founder side and on the talent side, I would evaluate on a scale 1 to 4. And frankly, like all 4 of these, or all 5 of these should be 4s. Like if I'm interviewing, I would want ideally for them to be all 4s. Now, for me, as I mentioned, for me, when I was interviewing, when I started at Blend, I started pretty early. I was employee number 13. So I was hired first as a consultant for a couple of months to help start to develop whether or not there was some opportunity to sell the platform as it was built. So I was brought in as a consultant, and after we started getting some early traction, then we moved into me joining as a full-time employee. So I was the first head of sales, and we were clear, like, hey, this is a head of sales opportunity. I was not called the VP of sales. We were very, very specific about that, and frankly, I didn't care. And I knew that there was still a lot of risk. I left a corporate job at a company called CoreLogic, where I was making, between $3,000 and $4,000 a year to not really work. I mean, let's to be honest. And I had a 30-minute commute to and from the office, right? So I'm making, really great money, great benefits, stay in Marriott's whenever I want, eat whatever restaurants I want to when I had to travel. Travel was pretty light, down to LA, a couple of conferences here and there. It was a pretty easy life. And I gave that up to go work at Blend at $100,000 salary with no bonus structure. $100,000 salary plus equity. And the reason I did that, even before they had customer number 1, is because I believed in the people and I believed in the problem. After that, I knew if we had the right people, which we did, and we were solving an important problem, then the product would follow. Those people would be able to build the right product to solve the problem. We'd be able to figure it out. And for me, didn't even care about the professional growth. I just knew the founders well enough, and I trusted that if I did my work, then they would make sure that I had the right opportunities available to me. And as far as the sales process, there frankly was none. And I knew that coming in. So for me, process was at a 1. But for me and that role, it actually was the exciting part, is that they knew they had no process, and they trusted me to come in and build that process. It's pretty unusual, right? So that's the way I would be thinking about this. So if you're, a Series A founder, and now it's time to start building out your sales team, these are the 5. These are, not the only 5, but these are certainly 5 criteria: people, problem, product, process, and professional growth around your opportunity that you're presenting to the market. Because let's face it, you're selling the company to top talent. That top talent has options available to them. They have different opportunities. If they're top talent, then you're not the only Series A company they're talking with. You're not the only they're looking at 2 or 3 or 4 different options at one time if they're looking to make a change. So you've got to sell this opportunity to them. You've got to be ready. It's got to be attractive across these 5 areas. And if you're top talent, and this is only if you're top talent, because if you're not top talent, then you don't get the right, you haven't earned the right to evaluate those companies. You're the one that's looking for an opportunity to prove yourself, right? And it's going to be more difficult for you to have leverage because the founding team is going to want to hire only top talent. It's not to say you can't get hired, but just know you want to look at these if you're not top talent, and this is maybe a first opportunity for you. Maybe you're a recent college grad, maybe you're transferring from big company structure and you want to go work at a Series A. Just know where you stand on this. You might not have as much leverage, but that said, you can still use this if you're, say, interviewing with 3 different Series A companies. If you've never sold, a startup product, if you've never worked in the startup industry, whether you're a college grad or somebody coming out of big company structure, then this will give you an opportunity to kind of more objectively assess and evaluate, because they might all look the same to you on the outside. It's like big, opportunity. It's exciting. Get to go work with a Series A startup, solving this kind of problem. But on the inside, they may all be very, very different. So it's your opportunity, it's your obligation to yourself to assess whether or not the risk that you're going to be taking by moving away from big company structure to Series A startup, is it a calculated risk, right? Is it the right environment for you? Is it the right problem that you want to solve? Is the product one that you can sell? Are you confident that you can sell the product today and not be waiting around for 6 months? Is there some process that you can improve as opposed to have to build? Because if you've never built that process, it might be really hard. You might find yourself drowning or feeling lost in the organization. And is there an opportunity to grow? So I hope that's helpful. I had, over the course of the last week or two, I had several DMs on LinkedIn from people that are looking for their next Series A opportunity. And certainly this time of year, coming out of, going into the spring is when a lot of, you're seeing headlines of founders that are closing their Series A because they've been successful over the past 12 to 18 months, growing even with the pandemic. So they've got some leverage and they've got some confidence of the investors to say, okay, good, you've proven it. Here's the Series A. Now go scale this thing. So if you got any questions on this, obviously let me know. This is one of the things we do with our clients every day, is help them through this talent acquisition process. For the Series A clients that we support, one of the big areas is, of course, like when is it time to hire? How do I know it's right? What are the jobs that I should be hiring for? How do I go and find the right match for the jobs that we have available? And of course, then going through the interview and assessment candidate process, because it can be difficult to assess sales people. It's different than engineering people where you can say, like, here's a problem, go solve it. Salespeople, it might be more difficult. So we have different projects and different ways of assessing those sales candidates that are coming in to know whether or not it's top talent for real or just looks like top talent on paper in the interview process. So if you're going through this right now and you want some help with your talent acquisition strategy, then this is one of the key areas in which we coach teams each and every day. So if you want some help with this, you can just type the word hiring down below or send me a DM here on LinkedIn. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, if you're listening to this on a podcast, just send me an email, Scott@salesqualia, sales, Qualia.com, Scott@salesqualia.com. You can just type the word hiring or private into the subject line, whatever. Just signal to me like, hey, I want to have a quick chat to see if or how you can help us out as we're growing our company, growing our team. All right, so that's it for now. I hope that's helpful as we're kind of going through this model. I think that's a good place to stop. So thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and let's make this happen, shall we? See ya.